So you have something you want to get off your chest, right?
Fuck Dave Meltzer.
Can you elaborate?
I just think he's a joke. All right, boom. Wrestling journalism.
Yeah.
Here's why. And this is why you were trying to prepare and get examples of when he was wrong and stuff. But the thing is, the one argument everyone has when he's wrong, Mike Johnson, whoever the fuck it is, whenever they're wrong, oh, well, wrestling is subjective to change, blah, 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 blah. Right? So it's more of a beef with Dave Meltzer, wrestling journalism, and then the fans who just think he's like a god. Because you think about it, wrestling is subjective to change. I think it was 2017 is when he was like, okay, Cena and AJ was in a lock to be like the main event of SummerSlam. Some shit like that. And it's like, well, it didn't happen. Okay, it didn't happen because things were subject to change. So then why would you report something? Well, it's a lock to happen, blah, 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 etc., etc. All of these things that they report, like how people are saying AJ has a hernia and shit. AJ was just on fucking SmackDown doing a segment, kicking everyone's ass, jumping around, doing phenomenal forearms, and he's in the Elimination Chamber. Where do they get the fact he has a hernia? Whether that was Dave, whoever reported it, things like this. People are saying Rollins might miss WrestleMania because of the back injury, blah, 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 which could happen, fine, whatever. Hopefully it doesn't because we need that match to happen. But the whole idea of wrestling journalism and fans taking it to heart it is very frustrating. I mean, like everyone listens to everything he says and they just take it as gospel, and it's annoying. And don't even get me started with the star ratings. The star ratings, someone like Dave Meltzer, honestly, ruined New Japan for me for quite some time because Lance Storm said it perfectly. Why can't you just watch something? Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles. I think this was before Crown Jewel. I believe that was the second Saudi Arabia pay per view. Um, they had a match, and it was a really good match. And then on his podcast, like, well, it wasn't a really good match. It was an
Well,
okay match.
no,
I
wait.
just
Crown Jewel isn't Crown Jewel the show that Daniel Bryan did refuse to work because of Saudi Arabia?
yes, exactly, yeah, yeah. So they had like a match on SmackDown the week before because they're like, oh, why not wait?
Right,
Let's just
right,
do it
right.
now.
Yeah.
And so he was like, it wasn't a great match. It was a good match, but I just saw like two 5-star matches last week that are 10 times better. And it's like, why can't you just shut the fuck up and enjoy something? And his clear bias towards like New Japan, I think Kenny Omega, Okada, Tanahashi, well, not so much Tanahashi, but like Kenny Omega, Okada, Naito, a lot of those people are great fucking workers, and Kenny Omega probably is the best one in the world right now. Like, there's just no denying that. But when you hear him give like the first Okada and Kenny Omega match 6 stars, like wow, it was that great. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, this is a great fucking match, and I don't blame him for giving it 6 stars. It's like 6 stars to exaggerate how great the match was. That okay, it was something special. And then after that, he starts rating matches. Hit Kenny and Naito 5 stars and 3/4. What the fuck is a 5 star and a 3/4 match? What does that mean? You're taking away the credibility of your own rating system.
And then
And
the rematch between Kenny Omega and Okada got 6.25 stars.
what is the qualifying of more than 5 stars? And he's just clearly biased to it, and the way he talks about it, he ruins it. He ruins wrestling for me a lot of the times, and I try not to listen to his stuff. And when he comes up on my YouTube, I try to block it because he's annoying. Because he talks like he's someone of some sort of stature. Because he calls these venues or he has people who tells him what the real crowd attendance are and blah 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 blah. It's wrestling. It's a fucking work. So if WWE tells me 80,000 people are in the building, I know it's really like 60,000 65,000. I don't need you to tell me that. I don't need you to just constantly bring up things that we know is evident. We know it's obvious. It's a work, and you take it so serious, and you take yourself serious. You're not a serious person. You're not credible. It's annoying.
Yeah.
You know, it, it's
And the
very
thing
frustrating.
the thing with wrestling journalism too is like it's obviously not a very lucrative career path because wrestling has been definitely on the decline the past 2 decades. So they come up with these clickbait articles and all this other stuff to try to make their money. And it's sad. Like you look at all these articles that they post, it's like nothing but nonsense. Like, oh, here's like a like I can't think of like you know what I'm talking about though, right? Like all these
No,
articles
of
that come up.
course. Like there'll be like him and
Like for example,
Brian.
like huge WWE stars making his return and turns out to be like a Ty Dillinger or something. For example, like that's one example.
Yeah, stuff like that.
They come up with these clickbait articles with these titles that are so misleading. So you click on them, and it's like huge WWE star coming back, and it's someone like, who cares?
No one cares. Or there's a major news update about something. There's no update as of yet. So that's your major news update. There's no update.
Exactly. You
and it's just
right
like,
point. Yeah.
It's not only him.
No.
I don't dislike the dude as a person. I just dislike his wrestling persona and him and like Brian Alvarez. Brian Alvarez is another person. I think Brian Alvarez, he used to wrestle for however long, and he talks like, because people always say,
I cannot listen to a Wrestling Observer podcast because they just, have you ever heard them talk before?
The most frustrating thing in the world.
It is impossible to listen to them because, first of all, Dave Meltzer, he's not good. He's like this huge journalist, and he's a big deal, but he can't articulate himself well. He's really bad at communicating. Like, he keeps saying like every 5 seconds, and
he's not a big deal.
He's not
a big deal.
I can't listen to him talking because he offers these opinions that he just make no sense.
He's only known right now, I really truly believe, for the star system. I don't think anyone cares about the Observer. I mean, like back in 1990, early 2000s, people would buy the Observer, because the internet was so young, it was so small, and things were still at work where no one knew shit was real. Okay, fine, but it's 2019. I was about to say 2018. Jesus Christ, it's 2019. Nobody cares about the Observer. He even says it. It's like, sometimes my star stuff overshadows me, and I don't understand why that is, because why do you care about what someone rates a match? Like, for me personally, I thought Roman versus Brock at WrestleMania 31 was one of the best WrestleMania main event matches of all time. I loved that match. I thought it was like 1,010 stars.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It told a great story. It wasn't the most technical match in the world. It wasn't even that long. Before Rollins came out, I think they were only wrestling for 12 minutes, but in that 12 minutes, you had no idea who the fuck was going to win. Like, everyone in my house was on their toes. And, that... it's frustrating the way they talk, as if they have
they know they're all knowing and they can never be wrong, even though they're always wrong. Basically, like, remember, what was it? The Greatest Royal Rumble. It was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar in that cage match, and it's like, Roman's definitely gonna win the title.
Yeah, and not all of it's his fault though, 100%, because the fans take what he say as gospel. And they think like, well, if Dave Meltzer said this, it's happening. And sometimes he doesn't differentiate his opinion between his reporting. So he'll say something, and then after that, when it doesn't happen, everyone's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just annoying. And again, the way he talks and the way he thinks, he's someone of a stature. He has like power, or he knows what he's talking about, because he really doesn't. Nobody does. We don't.
And this is something these other wrestling sites, they take something Dave Meltzer says and reports it as something that's actually happening, even though it was actually his opinion.
That's another thing too. Yeah, people. I think there's only one person. He does shows with Solid Monster and Stone Cold. I can't remember his name, but I enjoy him because he's just very honest. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen and shit. Like, it's just it's all he say, she say, and he gets, all this praise, and it's annoying because he really doesn't deserve it, and I just don't. I don't like him. I really can't stand him, to be honest with you. Like, whenever I hear Dave Meltzer, I groan. Like, my coworkers will send me articles about Dave Meltzer, and I just immediately turn it off. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I stopped growing up. When we were in high school, all we used to do was look on eWrestling News and look at all these reports, and then we come to find out half of the shit is wrong, and half of it's from Meltzer. So it's like, okay, I don't listen to the reports anymore. Like, when someone told me AJ had a hernia, I'm like, okay. And then I watch SmackDown when I get home from work, and he's doing all this shit. I'm like, there's no way he has a hernia. Like, there's no fucking way. Like, it's all
and
bullshit.
How about the other thing? Since we're talking about AJ Styles, I'm not gonna say for sure if it was Meltzer because I don't want to like call out the wrong person. But it was like, AJ definitely signed a new contract, and then
he tweeted it. Yeah. No, I didn't. And that's not even like him teasing he's going to AEW or anything. That's just him like, I didn't sign anything. Where is this stuff coming from? And that's another thing. Like, obviously WWE has so many fucking employees, so you can never tell who's like giving out this false information and stuff to people. but your sources aren't credible. Like that,
I
I
also
just
feel like with wrestling, because like you said, oh, it's scripted, so it kind of gives them like an escape if they, even if they report total nonsense that they know is nonsense. It's like, oh well, things can change.
things can change. Everything changes last minute. Vince rewrites everything, which I don't doubt he does. I mean,
I mean,
Vince is
I know they
Vince.
definitely at the last minute rewrote the Lesnar versus Roman finish. I don't doubt that.
No, of course, yeah. I mean that there's certain things where it's like, okay,
When it comes to
you know,
match outcomes, I understand them getting it wrong, but at the end of the day, though, but like if things always change, then why do you report on it?
yeah,
That's
and
how
not
I
only
feel.
that, there's certain things like they'll report and they'll be correct about, but it's like it didn't take, you don't have to be a fucking scientist to know certain things, like to report it and it be correct. Like certain match outcomes, like okay, we all knew this was happening, we all knew this was happening,
Yeah, like
you
a couple
know.
years ago, I predicted Orton and Bray for the title, and I didn't have to read any reports to know that was where they were going. You know what I mean? Like you don't have
Yeah,
to have a degree in journalism to do that.
to know that they were gonna fight, whether it was for the title or not. So, you
Yeah,
know, who reported, who thought fucking Wyatt was gonna win that title at Elimination Chamber? It shit happens on the fly and it's cool. And I just feel like these spoilers and these reports take fun out of it. And also the constant comparing. Listen, man, there's a lot of wrestling companies out there. There's MLW, there's WWE, there's New Japan, there's AEW, Ring of Honor. If you enjoy something, enjoy it. But you don't have to compare everything. You don't have to shit on everything if it's not something you enjoy. Because New Japan and WWE have two different philosophies. Personally, I enjoy New Japan. Although I think it's been, honestly, when Kenny Omega won the title, I thought it was really boring. I
yeah,
thought that was, his reign was very lackluster, but I didn't shit on the product. I was like, okay, like, it's cool. I personally enjoy WWE more, but although they fucking suck, low key, but that is what it is.
yeah.
Um, but the way he like talks about certain things and he makes his opinion, like, think it's, I can't stand him. I just really can't. Him and Brian. Brian too is another guy who fucking just talks about, oh, I'm a gymnast. I can, a 450 is not hard to do, or this or that. Like, how'd you fuck this up? Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, shut up.
Or like, how about
When
this person has backstage heat? That's another thing I love. Like this
when they
person,
reported,
yeah.
yeah, Nia Jax having backstage heat, yeah, he really hurt R-Truth. No, she didn't. They're fucking hugging backstage afterwards. Like,
Like obviously
shut up.
something's going on with Lars, but um, like all these other stories, like they don't seem too credible. Like, oh, so and so has backstage heat. This person has backstage heat. Like every second, someone's having backstage heat, or like Vince
And most of
McMahon
the
is
time,
high on
yeah.
this star, and then they end up going nowhere. So is he really high on this star? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? He changed the last minute. So then don't fucking report it. Because if you know everything's subject to change, why are you reporting anything?
Because they gotta pay their bills.
I don't know. And that star system, I just don't. It's another thing. Like when that match happened with Shawn Michaels, the DX versus Brother of Destructions, I actually only watched 10, 15 minutes of it for the first time, I think yesterday. Like I never actually sat down and watched the full match. I didn't really have a desire to. I saw clips of it, and it was like, all right, whatever. And Brian was talking about like Shawn coming out of retirement. He's like, well, I'm not no Shawn Michaels, but when I came out of retirement, I had bumps and I was looking rusty too, so I understand why he looked like this. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like you wrestled on independent shows in like front of 20, 30 people with your co-host Vinny. It was just shut up. You're so annoying. And I'm gonna end every video by saying fuck Dave Meltzer because fuck Dave Meltzer.
Yeah.
I just
It's
I
just
don't.
it's I think it's worse than regular journalism and video game journalism. I think honestly wrestling journalism is like the worst that I've ever
Of
seen.
course. And the wrestling, and you know what it is? It's also when they talk about, well, the fans don't want to see this or the fans don't want to. The internet wrestling community is such a vocal minority, it's fucking insane. Like, they talk about how the fans don't want to see certain things. Like, oh, people don't want to see Roman. You know what? But Roman's booed, they get booed and shit, but he's making a shit ton of merchandise money when they were doing that, or they don't want to see this, they don't want to see that. Just
Yeah.
because the people on your board, the 200, 300, 400 people on your board, or the 1,000 of people on Reddit don't want to see something, doesn't mean it's true. Because those 1,000 people are probably the ones who don't even buy tickets to any shows and spend no money on wrestling. So
Exactly.
that's another thing. You can't go by the internet wrestling community. A lot of them are toxic as fuck. Some of them are really cool. Like some of the really cool dudes, and like I have
Solid
nothing against
Monster.
them. I fucking love Solid Monster. I mean, Aaron Rift is cool too. I guess. I mean, I don't like his videos. I don't like his opinions, but that doesn't mean I don't like him.
Yeah.
Aaron Aaron Rift is not bad. But then you got these fucking assholes. Like, I don't know. It's just
I mean,
it's
I think
frustrating.
I think we've pretty much said everything that needs to be said about these guys. They they're obviously desperate to make money, so they come up with these clickbait articles. They report on things that are obviously not happening. Like, I think the biggest thing, for example, is Dave Meltzer saying, back when Punk walked out years ago, I remember he walked out after the Royal Rumble, right?
Yeah.
And then in March they were having a Raw episode in Chicago. Remember that episode where they played Punk's music and then Paul Heyman came out and it was just them trolling the fans, basically?
Yeah.
Remember, Meltzer was reporting CM Punk is definitely going to come back on this episode of Raw. Like, he's coming back.
And then Paul
And he
Heyman
didn't
came
come
out.
back.
And he hasn't been back since.
No, he hasn't.
Um,
So, it's
Yeah,
just,
that's-
that's probably the best example I could think of. It's
yeah, it's.
pathetic. And
I also think he's working for AEW. I'm just saying that. I really think he's working for AEW because they're good friends with him. And again, it's not like I hate Meltzer as a dude. I don't. I really don't. Like, I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's like a good guy. I know Austin likes him. Jericho likes him. But even Jericho, like, Meltzer would be like, Jericho can't have like a 5-star match at this age, and then Jericho goes out and put it on like a 5-star match performance. Like, what do you expect? Like, why are you thinking that?
And
You know?
these guys have also I forget where I was gonna go with this, but yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much said everything that needs to be said about these guys.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is that they kind of like inadvertently also like make wrestling worse, like make it less fun, because they post all these spoilers and all this other stuff.
It takes the fun out of things. Like,
Definitely.
one thing I can say about Meltzer, though, that I truly respect is he has a shit ton of knowledge. Like, don't get me wrong. He remembers all these events, these dates, these numbers, all this shit, where it's like, that, you could obviously tell he's a fucking wrestling fan, but, that's about it. So,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'd rather just listen to guys like Jim Ross, like those Jericho, like people who are actually in the
people
business.
who are in the business. Yeah, I mean, like, you don't have to be in the business to know everything.
No,
Like,
I mean, we're doing our thing, obviously.
yeah,
But-
you can give an opinion, but someone who's in the business can have a different opinion because they're in the business. So maybe, like when we talked about how Booker T, he said something like, "Oh, Kaz and Christopher Daniels reminds him of TNA." You know what? Maybe he fucking knows something that the public doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe he's onto something. I don't agree with it, but what the fuck do I know? I'm Joe Schlo in a fucking basement. Like, he's Booker T. He worked with him. He worked for TNA. Yeah, I don't know. I hope, like, someone like him, because that's another thing. The way he hypes up New Japan and stuff, I really hope that AEW, if he is working with them or if he is associated with them, they don't rely on him and use him like in a like PR type way, because I think that's just a bad look. Because a lot of people feel the same way as me when they're tired of Meltzer and they don't really care what he has to report because they don't think he's credible.
I mean,
So-
don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna like deny that they don't like come up with some good stuff here and there. Like they first, if they didn't break the story that Dean was leaving, we would have never known about it. Like they would have never
No,
said
of
that.
course, and again, it's not like I'm burying him as a person, but as like him as a wrestling
But
journalism
if
and
they're
all
wrong,
of them.
if they're wrong more than half of the time, it's like the saying that a broken clock can be right twice a day. That's kind of like what I feel about them. Like, sure, they get it right every now and then, but that doesn't mean you should like ignore when they don't get it right and when they report on just total nonsense. And that's
And
the
you
problem I
shouldn't-
have with them, is that they
shouldn't treat
they
them
just
as a
report
god,
on-
yeah.
They're like, even the most credible wrestling websites, they act like they're TMZ with all the gossip and all this other stuff they report on, because like I
Yeah.
said, it's not a lucrative industry to report on, so they're desperate and they have to come up with all these clickbait stuff, and it's annoying. And of course,
Yeah.
this transcends. I'm not specifically talking about Meltzer, but all these websites like like Bleacher Report and all these other ones.
I dropped my headphones. I didn't hear a word you just said about after websites, but whatever you said, yeah. I mean, listen, man, it's just frustrating. It just frustrates me. The whole journalism, the internet wrestling community, they're all annoying. It gets me annoyed because you can't, when WWE does bad, I'll be the first person to say it. Like, they make a lot of really stupid decisions with a lot of their talent. Like, look at Shinsuke, look at Rusev, look at Revival. These are great talent that should have been booked 12 times better. I won't deny that, But certain stuff they are doing great. Like, Mustafa Ali is better than I'd ever imagined. You got to give credit when credit's due. And when you have to call them out on shit, you got to call them out on shit.
Yeah.
But they're not the worst company in the world. They're not like this big fucking enemy. Like, the way people portray it and portray the company is kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
So, is that it?
Oh, yeah, fuck Dave Meltzer.
Yeah.